Hey, listeners, before we dive into today's episode, we want to hear from you.
We are doing a special Bible Answers episode in December, and we want to tackle the questions you've been wondering about from the last 16 seasons, whether it's something you've been curious about for years or something that just came in your own reading. Nothing is off limits.
Head over to BibleBookClubPodcast.com/contact. Fill out the contact form and send us your question. And here's the fun part. If we choose your question for the episode, our producer, Haley, will reach out to get your sweatshirt size because we're sending you a BBC sweatshirt as a thank you.
So this is your chance, and have fun with this one. We can't wait to hear what's on your mind.
And hopefully we can answer it.
We will be able to answer it. And now, today's episode. This is the Bible Book Club,
the book of Nehemiah.
Welcome to the club. Last time in chapters 5 and 6 of Nehemiah, we discussed 6 types of opposition that Nehemiah faced. The first was ridicule. That's opposition that can lead to losing heart. Threats, opposition that can lead to fear. Internal conflict, opposition that divides. Temptation, opposition that distracts. Lying, opposition that creates confusion. And finally, personal attacks, opposition that destroys credibility. All 6 are strategies the enemy still uses today. Can you spot them? And each has the same purpose: to distract us from God. In fact, if we took a moment to ponder, we would most likely find that we are at risk from at least one form of opposition right now.
Well, we are halfway through Nehemiah, and it's a good place to do a biblical time period check. Where are we in the greater story of God's plan of redemption? Well, we're in the post-exilic period. Let me explain this. That covers the years from 539 BC to the birth of Jesus. 500 years are divided into 4 other periods. The Persian period is the first. This is where we are in our story of Nehemiah. This time period began in 539 BC and lasted over 200 years. It's during this period that the last books of the Old Testament were completed. The book of Nehemiah is the last historical book before the 400-year silence between the Old Testament and the New Testament. We often forget that there was this long period of silence. He covers the time period of about 432 to 400 BC. Now, the book of Malachi is the last prophetic book and is most likely written about the same time as Nehemiah in 430 BC. Now, the second period in the post-exilic period is the Greek period under Alexander the Great, which began in 331 BC and lasted over 150 years. There are no biblical accounts during this period or the next, hence the 400 years of silence. The Maccabean or Hasmonean period is the third period. In 167 BC, the Jewish people revolted against Greece and gained independence. This was the last time the Jews would be under self-rule until the modern state of Israel in 1948. The last period in the post-exilic period is the Roman period, which began in 63 BC. This is the period we are most familiar with because the New Testament overlaps it, covering from about 5 BC to around 95 AD when the Apostle John wrote Revelation. So that's a snapshot of where we are in Bible history. We're kind of like at the end of the Old Testament, about to have that silent period. Now, of course, in our trek through the journey of the Bible, we're going to be backtracking a little. Like our next season, the book of Esther, actually occurs a little before Nehemiah chronologically, but it comes after Nehemiah in the Bible. I know it's very confusing.
And then there's all the books of the prophets,
Right.
which are happening in the middle of all the things we've already been learning about.
Yes. So the bottom line, we're going to be stuck in this post-exilic period for a lot more seasons. All right, let's get back to that Persian period where we find Nehemiah and the last historical written record of the Old Testament before that stretch of silence. Scene 1. The wall was completed in 52 days.
Nehemiah chapter 6, continuing in verse 15. So the wall was completed on the 25th of Elul in 52 days. When all our enemies heard about this, all the surrounding nations were afraid and lost their self-confidence because they realized that this work had been done with the help of our God.
This is a big deal. Despite the opposition, God prevailed and Nehemiah persevered. 2.5 miles of wall were rebuilt after about 140 years of lying in ruin. This was a testament to God's divine intervention, Nehemiah's strong leadership, and the people's renewed faith. And with all of that, the tables were turned. Jerusalem is protected. The people, the temple, and the covenant between God and the people are all a lot safer. Now it's the opposition that is afraid, not because Nehemiah threatened or ridiculed them. No, they are afraid because of what God had done. The nations realize that the return of the people has brought about a return of their God. And there were enough God stories from the past to scare them. Stories of parting seas, slaying angels, and falling walls. Stories we still tell today. Well, Nehemiah finished the wall, but not the mission, because scene 2, the opposition never ends. And won't until Satan is silenced once and for all.
Verse 17. Also in those days, the nobles of Judah were sending many letters to Tobiah, and replies from Tobiah kept coming to them. For many in Judah were under oath to him, since he was son-in-law to Shechaniah, son of Arah, and his son Jehonan had married the daughter of Meshullam, son of Berechiah. Moreover, they kept reporting to me his good deeds, and then telling him what I said. And Tobiah sent the letters to intimidate me.
So the enemy can always find a way in, and apparently Tobiah is still at it because he knows people. This is about family connections that never should have happened had the Israelites not intermarried. You see, Tobiah was an Ammonite, but he married the Jewish daughter of a returned exile, Shechaniah. And Tobiah's son, Jehonahan, was married to a Jewish woman, the daughter of Meshullam. Therefore, Tobiah is the son-in-law in one Jewish noble family and a father-in-law in another Jewish noble family. He has a way in. Tobiah's Jewish family relations are sending letters to Nehemiah trying to convince him that Tobiah is a good guy. But Nehemiah is not having it. I mean, really, what kind of pressure could letters from a few noble families create when you have letters of your own, letters of support and protection from Artaxerxes himself, the king of Persia, which Nehemiah had in his back pocket? Now, the author Nehemiah clearly wants us to learn something about opposition. The topic crops up in almost every chapter. Even right here, after such a miraculous effort of perseverance and victory, there is a quick rebound of opposition. The takeaway is that riding the wave of opposition is like riding a roller coaster that never ends. It has a lot of ups, downs, twists, and turns. We have to expect it. Don't resist. You may leave your stomach behind you. You may get dizzy and have a hard time focusing, but you can't get off. You must learn to ride the roller coaster with your hands in the air, praising God with a smile, despite a heart racing with fear. Because your trust is in the Lord, and you are confident that you will survive. The only other option is to ride the roller coaster with your hands braced against the safety bar. No thought of God, thinking only of the danger you are in, fearful that you won't survive, sick to death, and worn out from resisting the ride. We must learn to enjoy the thrill of the ride God has given us. This is an Old Testament lesson and a New Testament lesson. Listen to the Apostle James.
James chapter 1, verse 2, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. But when you ask, you must believe and not doubt, because the one who doubts is like the wave of the sea, blown and tossed by the wind."
Faith produces perseverance. With perseverance, you will finish the work. Nehemiah had persevered through the opposition. He had executed the plan. He had been patient. He had prayed at every turn. He had pondered every action. He had perceived every situation. I think God, the great author of the Bible, wanted us to learn to enjoy the thrill of God's call, but he did not want to leave us without an example of how to do it. Nehemiah is our example. Our journey will not look like Nehemiah's, but the goal is the same. In the end, our testimony and Nehemiah's testimony is the same. We read it in Nehemiah 6:16.
They realized that this work had been done with the help of our God.
The goal is always the same as Nehemiah's, for the world to know that whatever work we accomplish was done with the help of our God. So what will your testimony be? Nehemiah gave up the perks of the palace for the problems of his people. Is God asking you to give something up for a higher purpose? As I've been writing this, I have been more than a little put out. My husband is spending the day with my grandson. The weather is amazing, and they keep sending me pictures. I want to be there and here. I enjoy studying God's word every week, but FOMO is real. Sacrifices for the Lord come in all sizes. Nehemiah's was huge. Mine today, not so much. But who knows what tomorrow may bring? Remember, one day Nehemiah was comfy in the palace, sipping wine for the king, and the next, he was leading a national construction project and evading enemies on all sides. Whether big or small, do it all for the glory of God, like Nehemiah. Scene 3. Guard the gate and your heart.
Nehemiah chapter 7. After the wall had been rebuilt, and I set the doors in place, the gatekeepers, the musicians, and the Levites were appointed. I put in charge of Jerusalem my brother Hanani, along with Hananiah, the commander of the citadel, because he was a man of integrity and feared God more than most people do. I said to them, the gates of Jerusalem are not to be opened until the sun is hot. While the gatekeepers are still on duty, have them shut the doors and bar them. Also, appoint residents of Jerusalem as guards, some at their posts and some near their own houses.
Nehemiah's not done. The wall of protection is up, the gates are in, but gates are a place of entry. Therefore, they must be guarded. Nehemiah can't trust everyone at this point. Even the Jewish nobles are problematic. But he can trust his brother Hanani, the very one who journeyed all the way to Susa to tell Nehemiah about the wall. Hananiah, a man of integrity who feared God more than most, was also chosen. Nehemiah handpicked the overseers to guard the gates and gave the orders. Nehemiah never wanted those gates to be left unattended. There would be no opportunity for secret opposition to sneak in. The gates were not open until the sun was hot, instead of at dawn when they normally were, and they were shut at night by the gatekeepers and guarded by the residents. The limited hours may have been a precaution against attack, or a necessity because the city did not have enough guards. What about your wall? In the last few episodes, we talked about this concept of a wall. The wall protected the Israelites both physically and spiritually. It kept them safe from enemy attack. But more than that, it protected the temple where God's presence dwelled. The temple was the center of their relationship with the Lord. Their eternal future hung in the balance on that wall. We still need that wall today. God doesn't dwell in a temple made of stone anymore. He dwells in us, which means the wall we need to build today isn't made of bricks. It's made of faith. Every heart needs a wall of protection. We build that wall by building our faith. And if the faith is the bricks in the wall, then the word of God is what holds the bricks together. What about your gates? Gates are openings or opportunities in our heart. They are places where influences, ideas, and temptations can enter, shaping our desires, direction, and beliefs. If we do not guard these entry points, we can be vulnerable to spiritual attack. The New Testament tells us that.
In Matthew 6, verse 22, the eye is the lamp of the body. If your eyes are healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eyes are unhealthy, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light within you is darkness, how great is that darkness?
The eyes are a gate that must be guarded.
Then in Mark 4:24, then Jesus said to them, consider carefully what you hear. He continued, with the measure you use, it will be measured to you and even more.
So the ears are also a gate that must be guarded.
Proverbs 4:23, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it.
The eyes and ears are the entrance points that allow things to enter and take root in your heart. We need a wall and we need gates. So the question for us to ponder is, who can you appoint to help you guard the gates to your heart? Which gates to your heart are weak points of entry? And conversely, who and how can you be a gatekeeper for someone else? Back to our story. With the wall complete and the gates secure, Nehemiah moves on to the next build on God's to-do list. He needs to rebuild Jerusalem's population. The city is big, but it's empty. The city needs people for security. The people need houses to live there, but the houses have not been rebuilt. Where to start? Well, Israel loves a good head count of who's who, so Nehemiah calls all the returned exiles into Jerusalem for the count and to contribute to the city's rebuild. Scene 4, the list of the community of exiles.
Verse 4, now the city was large and spacious, but there were few people in it, and the houses had not yet been rebuilt. So my God put it in my heart to assemble the nobles, the officials, and the common people for registration by families. I found the genealogical record of those who had been the first to return. This is what I found written there.
Okay, so the record is going to have 6 categories of people, starting with the leaders.
Verse 6. These are the people of the province who came up from the captivity of the exiles whom Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, had taken captive. They returned to Jerusalem and Judah, each to his own town, in company with Zerubbabel, Joshua, Nehemiah, Azariah, Rehemiah, Nahamani, Mordecai, Bilshan, Mispereth, Bigvai, Nahum, and Baanah.
The next group of exiles are the regular citizens.
The list of the men of Israel. The descendants of Parosh, 2,172. Of Shephatiah, 372. Erah, 652. Of Pahath Moab, through the line of Jeshua and Joab, 2,818. Of Elam, 1,254. Of Zatu, 845. Of Zekiah, 760, of Binnui, 648, of Bebai, 628, of Azgad, 2,322, of Adonikim, 667, of Bigvai, 2,067, of Aden, 655, of Ater through Hezekiah, 98, of Hashem, 328, of Bezai, 324, of Harif, 112, of Gibeon, 95, the men of Bethlehem and Netoaph, 188, of Anathoth, 128, of Beth Asmaveth, 42, of Kiriath Jearim, Kephirah, and Beeroth, 743, of Ramah and Geba, 621, of Michmash, 122, of Bethel and Ai, 123, of the other Nebo, 52, of the other Elam, 1,254, of Haram, 320, of Jericho, 345, Of Lod, Hadid, and Ono, 721. Of Senaah, 3,930.
The next group are the priests. These were the descendants of Aaron.
Verse 39. The priests, the descendants of Jediah through the family of Jeshua, 973. Of Emer, 1,052. Of Pashur, 1,247. Of Harim, 1,017.
The next category are the Levites. This includes the singers, gatekeepers, and temple servants.
Verse 43, the Levites, the descendants of Jeshua, through Kadmiel, through the line of Hodaviah, 74. The musicians, the descendants of Asaph, 148. The gatekeepers, the descendants of Shallum, Ater, Talmon, Akub, Hatiah, and Shobai, 138. The temple servants, the descendants of Ziha, Haspua, Taboth, Keros, Sia, Padon, Libinah, Hagba, Shalmai, Hanan, Gidiel, Gahar, Reiah, Rezin, Nekoda, Gazam, Uzzah, Pasiah, Besiah, Menuim, Nephusim, Bakbuk, Hakupha, Harher, Bazluth, Mehida, Harsha, Barkos, Sisera, Tema, Neziah, and Hatipha.
Next is a group that descended from Solomon's servants, and they most likely were not Israelites, but had been grafted into the people of God.
Verse 57, the descendants of the servants of Solomon, the descendants of Sotai, Sophereth, Perida, Jaela, Darkon, Gediel, Shephatiah, Hatil, Pokereth Hezebiah, and Ammon, the temple servants and the descendants of the servants of Solomon, 392.
The next group is a mystery group. Their ancestry is undetermined. The list included regular citizens and priests.
Verse 61, the following came up from the towns of Tel Milah, Tel Harsha, Kirub, Aden, and Emer, but they could not show that their families were descended from Israel. The descendants of Deliah, Tobiah, Nekodoah, 642, and from among the priests, the descendants of Hobaiah, Hakos, and Barzillai, a man who had married a daughter of Barzillai, the Gileadite, and was called by that name. These searched for their family records, but they could not find them, and so were excluded from the priesthood as unclean. The governor therefore ordered them not to eat any of the most sacred food until there should be a priest ministering with the Urim and Thummim.
Now remember, the governor is currently Nehemiah. The priests of undetermined ancestry are excluded from acting as priests until they could verify them using the Urim and Thummim. The Urim and Thummim is still a great mystery to us today. What we do know is that they were two kind of pieces of something that were placed on the breastpiece of the high priest, and they were used to discern God's will, maybe like by casting lots or something. From the passage, it sounds like the Urim and Thummim were lost. Remember, they have been exiled. And until they're found, or God provides another way to discern his will, they cannot include these men in the priesthood.
Verse 66, the whole company numbered 42,360, besides their 7,337 male and female slaves, and they also had 245 male and female singers. There were 736 horses, 245 mules, and 435 camels, and 6,720 donkeys.
If the names and the numbers Heather just read sounded familiar, it is because this list was duplicated by Nehemiah from Ezra's list in the book of Ezra, chapter 2. The lists are identical except for a few discrepancies that were most likely corrections or updates. Genealogies were very important to Israel because they validated who was a part of the covenant of the promised land, who was eligible for the priesthood, and who carried the royal line of David and the promised Messiah. With everyone gathered and accounted for, Nehemiah sets the example and compels them to give. Scene 5. The community contributes.
Verse 70. Some of the heads of the families contributed to the work. The governor gave to the treasury 1,000 derricks of gold, 50 bowls, and 530 garments for the priests. Some of the heads of the families gave to the treasury for the work 20,000 derricks of gold and 2,200 minas of silver. The total given by the rest of the people was 20,000 derricks of gold, 2,000 minas of silver, and 67 garments for the priests. The priests, the Levites, the gatekeepers, the musicians, and the temple servants, along with certain of the people and the rest of the Israelites, settled in their own towns. When the 7th month came and the Israelites had settled in their towns,
the people gathered, the people gave, and the people are going to return to their towns. But before they do, Nehemiah will do another little rebuild of the heart this time, with the help of his old friend Ezra in our next episode.
We are so grateful you're here. Thanks for reading along, geeking out with us, and being a part of the Bible Book Club. You are the reason we do this. New episodes drop every Monday.